much, Morten Niels Jacobsen, and I give the floor straight away to Lars Krull. And that's the last presentation in this block before we have a Q&A with primarily questions and comments from the politicians up here. Thank you very much for inviting me, ministers, parliamentarians, etc. I'm very happy that I've been allowed to come here and talk a bit about the perspectives of money laundering, and it matches very much what I've heard so far. I will use my slides a lot, so please watch them as well. I'll start by talking a bit about the anatomy of money laundering. Then I'll come with a concrete example where we go on a trip together. It's a complicated trip, but you'll get it in print afterwards. And then I'll talk a bit about banks and money laundering, and then I'll have some specific suggestions for what you can do, what you should do, and what you can really do if you really want to do something. If you look at SOIC's website, the Fraud Squad's website, they actually have 9 points where they describe what money laundering can be. The type of money laundering we've seen in Estonia is the complicated form of money laundering where everything is sort of muddled up, which the two speakers already illustrated, that you sort of lose sight of things. So that's sort of the idea, that everything gets so complicated that you lose sight of the money. So what do the criminals want? Well, they have some money, and the money we are interested in is the money we are not allowed to see. They want to launder that hidden money. But what do they want to achieve? Well, they want to have a great life. I know this is a caricature, but let's remember this caricature. Any criminal knows that if you steal the money and then live a life like that in the caricature, then immediately the police will turn up, because any criminal knows that's not possible. So the criminal needs to hide where the money came from. You can't just take the money and then spend it. So he has an idea. How do I live that fantastic life? Well, you do it if you make money like a respectable businessman. So you need to create a business. And that's what I would like to illustrate with my concrete example where we visit Estonia. And as Jesper Berg said, this is also a trip to the former Soviet Union. Let's have an example. Some of you, you already know some of these people, but let's start in Azerbaijan. Here's a person or a group of people who get some money. They send the money to an account in a bank in Estonia. Then the money is gone. But you need to hide. They don't own the account. The account is owned by a business in the UK, in my example. In this case, we also call it Hilux, and this is the business that owns the account. So far have we come? Well, we are at the point where we have to remember this is our goal. How do we get to the goal? I'm not a businessman yet. I've hidden the money, but they're not at my disposal now. So what do? We, of course, open a respectable little firm in Azerbaijan. And that company, in this example, they, for instance, order some meat products from a Danish food trader. So they order the meat. But who is in fact receiving the invoice? Well, that's Hilux in the UK. And in this example I have constructed, they pay $1 per chicken leg. That's probably a bit steep, but that's what I use in this example. But it's Hilux that pays. But Hilux asks Danske Bank in Estonia, where they have an account, to send the money to the Danish vendor. So do you understand? Now we've ordered some goods, ordered by a person from Azerbaijan, but a UK company is paying, and the money goes to a Danish meat vendor. And then, of course, the product is sent off to Azerbaijan, and Hilux makes a new invoice to Azerbaijan of just 2 cents. Or rather 20 cents. I mean, you haven't added any profit or anything. You have really just laundered. And you're a successful businessman now in Azerbaijan, and you have reached the luxury life you want. I know this is a complicated trip, but that's what it looks like. If this had been at a university and if this were legal, the students would have passed. But the thing is, we don't want money laundering. There were some journalists mentioned earlier, and I just want to say that these transactions and these companies have, of course, been used by respectable companies in the West in order to buy goods, move them to the East at a low cost. So we may not even, as a nation, have lost money in this. We may even have earned money. But of course, it shouldn't be that way. Banks and money laundering, I would like to divide it into 2 phases, an international one. And I would like to point out that Danish banks who have been involved in money laundering, they have really been punished, which means that they have changed their organizations. So thank you to the press and the politicians for that. If we then look at money laundering at home in Denmark, I would like to say that the banks do a lot of reporting, and they're also willing to do their bit because they have a lot of knowledge about economics and finance. But where we want to get is that we want to do money laundering completely socially unacceptable, a bit like drunk driving. It took us about 30 years. There was a time where you thought, well, I can still drive after a couple of beers. But today you're demonized if you say that. And we want to get to that point with money laundering as well. Money laundering is common crime. And all forms of crime, including financial crime, is, well, some people see financial crime as sort of more noble crime or executive crime, but luckily I see a change in attitudes now. But like in all governance, you as politicians have the initiative here because you set the tone at the top as politicians. So please create the right tone. If we are to solve this issue, I think the banks nationally already are doing very well. But let's not make money laundering a bank issue only. Of course, the banks are a very important part of the solution, but only part of it, not the entire solution. So don't stop here, because if you solve the problem here, then it may turn up again in a much more undesirable place or in other undesirable places. I have some examples of money laundering here. Let's say you win 30,000 kroner in the lottery and somebody wants to have his money laundered. He may buy my lottery ticket at a premium. So there are many things you can do with such a lottery ticket. And that's something I've also studied for many, many years. Any person in a bank, any accountant, any lawyer knows about asymmetrical income. That can be wage earners. If they earn so much, then they may have a house or a holiday home, and they earn this. But somebody who has his own business will often report a lower income than a wage earner. Any accountant knows that of that type of asymmetry. And that's just it. Company owners don't always report their full income. So they actually have more finances, more assets available. in their disposable income. And the difference is also, in a sense, money laundered. Before I finish in a few moments, I can ask, what can we do? Well, in Denmark, we have a wonderfully digital society. We have all the data. We know the income. We know who the legal owners. We know how much debt people have. But how does asymmetry then occur? Well, it's because the risk of being detected is not very great. And you may say, but the tax authorities do go through all these data. Well, I've seen plenty of examples where people have shown me their income page, and I thought if I could be a policeman, I would immediately have investigated this. So to me, I think we need to increase competences in our tax system. So what should we do? Well, we need to ensure that everybody understands money laundering is not acceptable. I would like to commend you for creating the rules and actually also the tools, but we need to really start using those tools. And we especially need to involve accountants and lawyers, because they should not accept that they have customers who say that's a low disposable income. Then you have to say you have to get more money out of your business. But they'll say, well, then I can't do any moonlighting anymore. Well, they shouldn't do moonlighting. I think there are quite a few businesses who are covered by the money laundering issues here. But if we're really to get down to business, and if we're really to attack the waffles, as we say in Denmark, that's why there was a picture of a waffle. If you really want to show that you mean this seriously, you also need to get hold of the sort of mislaid money, which is money you still have, but you don't show them to people. Often they are located in a bank box. There might be reasons why you mislay your money like that. Maybe you don't want to pay inheritance tax. Often money has been white at some point, but maybe they're not now. But in order to get rid of this, then the central bank should suddenly change our money or something like that. It's not a problem for me. I have 640 kroner in cash, but that would be one way of handling it. Suddenly changing our cash money, then you would certainly get rid of any mislaid cash. But to sum up, nobody likes money laundering, but you need to set the tone at the top. And I hope you will quickly move away from simple politics and instead focus on not doing things right, but doing the right thing. And those of you who look so much at your bills and coins, remember that cash is a way to pay. It's not a way to save your money. And then one last thing, what is often in the way of a good plan is the dream of a perfect plan. No, you need to just get started. Create the right culture. I'm sure you all agree on the goal. And also remember to have a supervisory body that's competent. I think we have that. And don't criticize the authorities for actually doing their job. And then again, quality and competency is much more important than quantity. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for joining me on my little trip.
Lars Krull.
Thank you very much, Lars Krull.
Thank you, Preben Bank Henriksen from the Liberal Party. Thank you, Lars Krull. Thank you for a very easily understandable example. You also have a good sense of humor. So I also have to ask you about changing our cash money in Denmark. Was that a serious proposal? because the ideas I've heard about changing money just after the war, that's when you last did that. Now people say you won't get enough out of it compared to how much it would cost to do a cash conversion to new bills and coins. And in the last cash conversion, we didn't do anything about coins, so you can keep your 42 kroner there in coins. Thank you very much, Morten. Lars Krull. Thank you, Preben, for your nice comment. You asked about cash conversion, and I presented a catalogue. And the cash conversion came after the waffles when I said that if you really want to do something, that's what you should do. And I mean it seriously. Issue new bills. It would be great. And of course, I don't want people to go down and get new bills. No, I want them to put their money into an account, because cash is what you use to pay people with. You don't put your savings in cash. And if people have the cash in their mattress or in a box in a bank, then they probably have an issue. But this is when you really want to do something. Thank you. Thank you very much to the panel for this block. Thank you, Jesper Berg and Morten Niels Jacobsen, who leave the panel now.